Hello guys, this video is devoted to Arturia Microfreak and its new function, that is Vocoder. Most of you may know that Arturia quite recently has released a new version of Microfreak, that is Vocoder edition, where they introduced a new type of oscillator, that is Vocoder. However, if you own the original one, you may still use this new Vocoder functionality. You should just update the firmware and get all this functionality. The only major difference between the original Microfreak and the newer one is that White Edition, Vocoder Edition has a mic inside the box. However, the original Microfreak isn't supplied with a mic. So we should find some alternatives to use this Vocoder with some mic or line signal to get this Vocoder experience. So in this video I'm going to show you how to connect your regular microphone with XLR output to Microfreak. What other options of microphones you may use with this, how to set new parameters devoted to microphone and vocoder inside the utility menu, and I'm gonna show you some tips and tricks, patch ideas using this new vocoder function. Let me say a couple of words about vocoder in general. Vocoder uses two signals that are called carrier and modulator. For carrier we usually use some harmonically rich signal like sawtooth or pulse waveform. I'm sure most of you are familiar with how saw or pulse sounds like. And the second signal is called modulator. In vocoder, by modulator we usually use the signal from the microphone. And when everything is set correctly, what's gonna be next? I'm gonna hold the keys, speak something to the microphone, and the sum of the signals gives us sort of synthesized speech or robot speech. And it doesn't matter on what pitch you pronounce the words or sing. The pitch of this voicing is controlled by the keys. This technique, this vocoder function, is quite popular. I'm sure you heard it many times in your favorite tracks, in electronic music or pop music, rock music, whatever. And I guess already several generations of people are familiar with this sound. And now let's start working with vocoder by Microfreak. First of all, let's see how the new version looks like. You see this new gooseneck microphone that is connected to the headphone output, and for many years, till the start of this product, it was a secret that inside this headphone output there was a microphone input as well. We didn't know that until the release of the Vocoder edition. What can we do with the original Microfreak if we don't have this nice gooseneck microphone? What are the options? This connector is not a TRRS or like a stereo jack output, but it's TRRS. This means that the cable should have this additional ring. So let's compare regular TRRS and this TRRS. You see, it has an extra ring. Normally we don't have this type of cables in our studios, so you should buy it. And this is not just a cable, this is a splitter. So this jack is splitted to two regular TRRS, and one of them is for output, headphones, and the other one is for input, microphone. For me it was not that easy to find this kind of splitter. I guess you won't find it in a regular music store. But for example, if you use Amazon, you will find lots of variants of these splitters. Just type in TRRS splitter and there are many options. Okay, let's connect it. What else we should do? I'm gonna send line signal to this input. For this I'm gonna use, as I previously showed you, this TRRS cable via stereo jack, TRRS jack, not this mono TS jack that lacks that ring. Maybe I did something wrong, but I tried to use this cable with this connector and send signal from my audio interface to this input. I also tried to connect directly this cable to, for example, Moog VCA output. It has the same size, so no connector needed. In my situations, I didn't get the signal from this TS cable. However, this stereo cable worked fine. On the other side of this cable are two mono jacks, TS cables. So I put them inside my audio interface to the line input. You may use both of them, you may use only one of them. It worked the same in my situations. So I connected one side to the audio interface and the other one goes to mic input. I'm gonna use Ableton Live. I'm gonna show you how to set up your audio interface and the overall project to send from Ableton to Microfreak some signal that's gonna trigger vocoder. Let me show you audio settings. For mic, I'm gonna use mono input 2. This is gonna be a regular XLR mic, not that goose one or whatever. It's Sennheiser 421. And another input I'm going to use is for Microfreak itself, so output of Microfreak goes to my audio interface input. I use two stereo outputs, one is just main master output that goes to the speakers or headphones, and another one goes to Microfreak. So the output from some track goes outside audio interface and comes to Microfreak input. Now let's set our project to send and receive signals between the two devices, Microfreak and our computer. First of all, what we need? We need Freak input. It's the input from this Microfreak output. This is my track 2. External in, Freak input, and monitor in to hear the sound from Ableton. Then what we need? Microphone in, external in, mic second, and again monitor in to get the signal inside Ableton. Next, we don't send this microphone signal to our master output, to our speakers or our headphones. We send this signal to external output. In my case, it's 7/8 pair Freak. So output from this track goes to the input of Microfreak. That's all what we need at this point. Now let's test how everything works. I have my mic on the stand. You see the indication of my speech. I'm gonna raise it a bit. So our mic is ready to send the signal to Microfreak. Then I'm gonna hold some keys on my Microfreak and start to speak. Hello, hello, this is Microfreak vocoder test. And you already hear some vocoder timbre. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And as I said previously, it doesn't matter what kind of notes do you pronounce or sing, vocoder gonna kind of transform them into the notes you play on the keyboard. Hello guys, this is Microfreak test. I hope you enjoy. So if you don't have an original Microfreak microphone or some regular studio microphone with XLR output, what other options you may use with this input? I found on the internet. First of all, you may use some kind of these computer mics. In my childhood I had something like this. So it's a regular computer microphone with, what's important, this jack output. Also we may use headphones for mobile phones that have this microphone, but it's important that they have the same connector as here. Some of them are smaller, and of course this one is not our story too. I didn't try these two types of microphones, mobile phones and these computer microphones, but I guess they should work. If you have an experience with these two types of microphones, please let me know in the comments if they work fine or not, so I'll add this information to the description of the video. So by now we just tested some simple things. We connected our regular microphone through computer to Microfreak and did some basic operations. However, there are some important settings that you should take into account to get a good signal and a good timbre. I'm speaking about microphone gain setting inside Microfreak, and I'm speaking about the output level of the microphone inside our Ableton. If the signal that comes into this input is too high, you will hear some kind of distortion that passes through the synthesizer, even if you don't play any keys. So let me show you. I'll just raise the level quite high. So you see, I didn't play any keys, and this distorted signal you hear comes from Microfreak. So the first important rule is not to send quite loud signal to Microfreak. In my experience, the overall level should be something around -18 dBs. So let's set it, pum 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 pum, something like this. Also, I recommend you to use some kind of compressor on your microphone track to make the signal kind of solid. Now let's pass to utility settings. There is mic settings. and the first one is mic gain. I can't say you what kind of level you should put. It depends on several things like what kind of mic do you use, what the output of your signal. You might start with some low values, speak something, play something, and start to raise it. So you see the signal appears, so that means that you are on the right way. If you put it too high, again you will hear this kind of distortion. There's also an option, auto gain. Let me show you. First of all, I'm gonna turn off the volume. It's in the very end of this menu. To my taste, I didn't like this function because if the signal of the microphone is low, or even if you don't say anything, it starts to raise the signal input more and more, and as a result I had some kind of feedback signal like this sine wave. You may hear it on the concerts or something like that. Personally, I would recommend you not to use auto gain, but maybe in some situations or with your setup it's okay. In my situation, I didn't like it. So I'll just put 15 dBs for my input gain. There's also noise gate. Yes, most of you are familiar with this one. If you don't want some noise to come through your microphone, like for example noise from your computer, you should enter this menu and start to raise this value or lower and find the point where you get rid of the noise, and on the other side you have loud signal of your voice. Also, what else may help you to set the mic gain? If we quit the settings, we will see this vocoder indication, and it has 1, 2, 3 squares. Actually, it's input level indication. So when I speak something, wow, 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 or something loud, you will see this skull at the end of these squares. The skull means clipping, that the signal is too high. So you should tend to be something in the middle square, and put your mic gain or output in your project to aim this middle square. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So in my case it's quite okay. There's also an option inside utility mic detection, on and off. What it means? When you change your oscillator type to vocoder, in my case sometimes Microfreak didn't recognize that the microphone is plugged in, and if Microfreak doesn't recognize it, don't turn the vocoder on. So I decided to turn off this function, and in my case it solved the problem. Again, let me know if you had another opinion, or in what situation would you recommend to have this option on. So by now we covered most of the technical information you should know. Maybe it was not that exciting, that I guess the second part, because the second part is devoted to patch ideas and the use of Microfreak, Ableton Live together to get some interesting timbres. Let's check out that everything still works. Wow, wow, quite high signal. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So if you're gonna use the vocoder in its classical way, singing with this synthesizer, you already have everything set. I'll put some effects like reverb, delay, and with these effects the result is quite nice. Also, you may use vocoder not only for speech or vocals, but you can use it for some rhythmical things. You can just try to do something like beatbox. Let me have some beat. So you just heard it was not kind of vocal, but I just triggered vocoder with some vowels or consonants, and that gave me some chords, deep chords, dub techno chords, and so on and so forth. So in this case you don't have to draw all these notes inside your MIDI clip. You can just have your chords and improvise with your mouth. If you do this, for example, for a couple of minutes, you then have many variations of the same chords. You can cut it, put together, make some interesting paths and so on. From now I'm not gonna use my hands to trigger the chords. I have a MIDI clip that sends signal to Microfreak, so it lets me free my hands and do some settings. Let's check. 1, 1, bum, 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 ba bum, ba bum, bum. Okay, it works. If you want to use vocoder for its regular function, speech or voice or singing, you might face the following problem. The consonants you pronounce are not that clearly heard when they pass through the vocoder. So you get this warm sound, but the intelligence of your pronunciation is not clear. Let's just check. Hello, 1, 2, 3. This is Microfreak tutorial. We're checking out how the consonants are heard. So did you hear it? The consonants are kind of disappeared, or the level is quite low when they passes through the vocoder. To solve this problem, vocoder inside Microfreak have several options. We are going to Utility, Preset menu, find vocoder hiss mode. There are 3 options: off, switched and pass. Hiss mode aims to solve this problem, to make the pronunciation of the consonants more clear. The simplest to explain is pass mode. You start to hear this hiss. Let's make it a bit not that loud. So what pass mode does? It just passes the incoming audio above 5 kHz into Microfreak. So let's compare with this pass mode and without it. I'll just say something like this. It almost disappears. And this. Hello, this is Microfreak. However, you may not like that this constant hiss comes through your microphone into your Microfreak. And for this there is another mode that is called switched. Let me raise a bit the level of the hiss. Let's jump into switched again. So what is switched mode? Unlike the pass mode that passes the audio all the time, switch mode don't do that. It recognizes our consonants and replaces them for that short period of time while we're pronouncing them to noise. If you have your wave oscillator set to saw or pulse, for that short period of time while I pronounce s or ch or something like this, it substitutes this saw to noise. And when I'm continuing to pronounce some vowels, it turns on the saw again. Let me show it kind of slow motion. I'm gonna use the word swing. Did you hear this noise? For the period of time I pronounce, it substitutes the signal, the saw, with the noise. And without it, hiss mode off. So this switched mode adds some clarity of pronunciation in kind of dynamic mode, while passes all the time. And again, do you hear this hiss? You may not like it. As I said previously, my MIDI clip is always working, so my hands are free. But you may also turn it off and just use Hold key on your Microfreak, just put some chord, and then you can speak, sing or whatever. This is also a good function to free your hands. But I'm coming back to my chord progression. I turn this off and launch my clip. The next secret, but it's not a secret, people use it for many years. We don't have to put only the voice to our vocoder. We may use any signal as a modulator to trigger a vocoder. For example, drums, guitars, trumpets or whatever. An important point that the signal should be kind of articulated, some rich signal. If you're gonna send a sine wave to vocoder, I guess you won't be satisfied with the result. So I have some drum beat. Let me show you how it sounds without vocoder. And now I'm not gonna send this to our master track, but I'm gonna send it into external output that goes to Microfreak. And let's hear the result. You hear it's very interesting timbre, these chords that are triggered, they have different volume, and the overall path is quite dynamic. It's very interesting to play with it. Let me play just a bit. Let me add some drums and bass. So it's very important what kind of signal do you have as a modulator, because it triggers your vocoder and gives some rhythmical results. I've prepared not only drums, but a guitar as well. Let's hear an original sample. Let's try it with the vocoder. It gives an absolutely different rhythm in comparison with the drums. But what we also can do, we can play with the sound of the guitar to make something different. We can also add some rhythmic effects, like the simplest one is delay, that's gonna change the rhythm of our sample and thus the rhythm of the general result. Now let's combine two modulators. One is my voice and the second one is sample. I'm gonna use this beat as a modulator and then I'll add some signal to the microphone and we'll have the combination of two modulators. This combination can give you interesting results as well, because you combine two or more signals into one modulator. Now I'm gonna show you some trick that lets you use your Microfreak functionality with this input, even if you don't have this kind of splitter. For example, you're waiting for the delivery or you don't have one in your local shop. There's a good news, you may use your Microfreak vocoder right now without any splitters. At the moment, as I showed you previously, my output from audio interface comes into this input to Microfreak. Now let's get rid of this splitter. And the secret is I may connect this cable directly into the input but with some limitations. So if you fully connect it and plugged into Microfreak, nothing will happen. You see, and you hear nothing. But if you start connecting your cable not till the very end, but somewhere in the middle, you will hear like this. You hear it works. So I may leave it like this and keep on walking. Of course, this connection is not very reliable. You're not going to use it on stage or in some important situations. But again, if you now don't have this kind of thing and want to try the things I'm explaining you right now, you have an option. Okay, let's continue. Let me remind you that vocoder consists of two signals, carrier and modulator. We spent some time making interesting modulators with our voice, with samples and so on and so forth. And now let's pass to the carrier part of vocoder. Carrier is gonna be a synth engine inside Microfreak. We will see what these knobs do. We'll try to add some modulations and get some interesting results. Let's start with wave type. At the very low position, the synth gonna generate sawtooth. Then from a bit right till almost the end, we're gonna have different widths of pulse. It's gonna influence the timbre. Let's check it. Just so. I'll launch my drums again. Let's compare it. And the very right position gonna generate the noise. This may be great for some percussive timbres. Let's check out the next knob. So according to the manual, it's Formant Shift. To say simply, the result is the following. Lower positions give some warmer sound with less high frequencies, while higher values give more bright and open sound. For more details about this timbre knob, you should read the manual. The explanation is quite clear there. And the last one is shape. It's a bandwidth, so what vocoder does, it splits the modulator into 16th bandpass filters, and then the signal comes to Microfreak. So by this knob you set the width of these bandpass filters, and this width gives different results. Again, for me it's just, I'm trying to remember these knobs just by the result, not by the theory. So shape knob for me, in the low position give metallic sound, almost inharmonic. In high position it's gonna be more regular, warm. So we have our knobs set, and now let's add some modulations that are great in Microfreak. What we're going to use is modulation sources, our envelope, our second envelope, and LFO. Let's start with the LFO. It's in sync mode in my case, and the signal from Ableton comes to this USB. It receives MIDI clock, so all modulations of LFO are gonna be in sync with the project. Let's put LFO to field frequency. Let's close a bit and get some modulation. So you may know that LFO in Microfreak has only up position, but when you set in matrix position the values in minus, the sawtooth is going to be reversed, so it's in down position. And this gives some rhythmical stuff, some accents. And in combination with my beat that triggers the vocoder and the LFO that triggers cutoff frequency, the result is quite interesting. It's rhythmical, it's dynamic. Another interesting thing with the LFO, Microfreak and its vocoder is that we can put this LFO to the wave knob and have waveform modulation. I'm gonna turn off the filter for some time to be not disturbed and put it to wave shape. So for me the most interesting results are when we touch our noise position in the wave shape. So I have some wave shape somewhere upper middle and add some modulation that's gonna touch a bit noise oscillator. You hear that noise that added to the overall sound. Let's compare with this noise and without it. The timbre gets a bit boring in comparison with this modulation when the noise is added. Much more dynamic. Again, without it. I like with the noise. Don't know what do you like, but in my taste it sounds very interesting. Then we can combine it with cutoffs. For timbre and shape we may use our second envelope. I'll put it in run mode, so it's going to work like something like an LFO. Let's put it for timbre knob. And I'll put it to the shape as well. Now my timbre have both some rhythmical and synced modulations thanks to the beat itself and the LFO. And the cyclic envelope, it's not synced to the timbre, it gives some slow variations of the timbre thanks to the modulation of these two knobs. Now let's trigger the filter with the envelope. You see, it's in some position. Let me turn off for some time the modulations. Now let's add filter amount. Here nothing happens because if you see my clip, I have two long chords. And filter envelope gonna work only in the beginning of these notes. Now I'm gonna turn these long notes into a series of short ones. For this I'm gonna use arpeggiator that is built in Ableton Live. There is mode chord trigger that just gonna trigger the same notes, not like arpeggio 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4, but all the four notes all together. And I have right here. So let's hear how it sounds like. Almost nothing has changed, but now the envelope is retriggered all the time. and we can apply it to the cutoff. By the way, pay your attention to that amp mode is turned off, because if I want to trigger the filter with some lower positions of attack and decay or sustain, the overall volume of the patch is gonna be too low. Let's hear it. You see, almost nothing happens because sustain is to 0. And to have a patch with high level, but with articulations of the envelope to the filter, I'm gonna turn this off. Now it's quite loud. And the envelopes influence filter only, not the volume. And of course, very important what kind of rate I use in my arpeggiator. Let's try different values. Now let's combine two modulation sources to the filter, the envelope and the LFO. You may get very interesting results if you use different rates of your notes, your arpeggiator, and an LFO. So in my case, it's an 8-note dotted, and LFO is set to 4th note, and they work together in an interesting way. Also, you should always try to tweak your envelope parameters to get the result that's the most interesting for you. And you hear the final result is quite articulated. Let's try it with other instruments. And of course, you should try different types of filter. Let's try bandpass. High pass. And let's come back to Outpus. And let me give some summary about the Carrier synth engine playing. We should play at least with the three things: cycling envelope, regular envelope and LFO, because all of them give you some rhythmical results. And the combination of these three blocks with the actual positions of the knobs give a wide palette of rhythms and timbre colors. And again, these results combined with the results we get from our modulator section, our microphone, our samples, effects and so on. And these two powers nicely set Carrier and some experimental modulator, together they give a wide palette of timbres, rhythms and sounds. I strongly recommend you to play with both of these worlds. And we should all say thank you to Arturia for their updates. To my taste, Arturia produces the most interesting and the most revolutionary updates for their devices. It's not only bug fixes, but all the time they add some very interesting additions. A year ago they introduced noise oscillator, this year they introduced vocoder, and I guess in the course of the next years they're gonna introduce more and more features, functions, oscillator types and so on and so forth. If you liked the video, you may also like the presets I did for Microfreak. I own Microfreak for about a year, and in the course of this year I made 3 banks of presets, even 4. There is a sound set with arpeggios, it's called Modular Arps. I created some interesting and comprehensive arpeggios. Another one is called Mystic Pads, it's the sound set of 50 pads. Another one is devoted to beautiful and lo-fi keys and plugs. And the last one, the fourth one, is called Noise Oscillator, it's devoted fully to the latest, by that time, type of oscillator. You may find information about the sound set in the description. If you like them, you may get them. Okay guys, that's all for today. It's got a bit darker, as you see, night comes. I hope you enjoy the things I showed you, technical ones or patch ideas. Again, please let me know about your experience with this non-original connection, with splitters, with different kind of cables and so on and so forth. I'm very interested to gather this information, and then I add this information to the description. So new people are gonna watch the video and they will see all the options that they may have to use this vocoder function. Okay, see you in next videos. Goodbye guys.